President Trump obviously has declared his intention to run again.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
His campaign thus far has been incredibly lackluster. In fact, what the polls show is that President Trump has dropped well behind Joe Biden in any reelect polls. They also show that he has dropped behind Ron DeSantis in many of the primary polls. The reason for that is because many of the reasons that people resonated to Trump in the first place are not present in the current Trump incarnation. So if you're, like me, very frustrated with the Republican Party that trots out as its former Speaker of the House a person who cries over Nancy Pelosi and talks about how his daughters are now Democrats, if this frustrates you to no end, then you might be in favor of someone who fights. Right? This is the he fights stuff. This is where it came from. It came from the fact that Mitt Romney was the Republican nominee in 2012, ran a rather genteel campaign against Barack Obama after having run John McCain, who ran a rather genteel campaign against Barack Obama in 2008. They both lost. Mitt Romney now votes for many Democratic priorities in the Senate in Utah and refuses to endorse people like Mike Lee, actual constitutional conservatives in the state of Utah. We'll sit that one out while maybe Evan McMullin runs against him. And so many Republicans are like, I don't like that brand of Republicanism, the kind that actually doesn't stand up for, it seems, much of anything. And well, what exactly do you do here? So a lot of people resonated to Trump because Trump was rude and uncivil and because he would break things. And so his anger reflected their own. Well, right now, Trump's anger is not reflecting their own. Trump is angry at things that most Americans are not top of mind about. Trump is mostly personally peeved that he lost the 2020 election, and now his ask is of the Republicans that they spend inordinate amounts of time focusing on this. And not only that, Trump basically promised two things when he came into office in 2016 and during his campaign in 2015, 2016. He promised to rectify both of the problems that I've been talking about at the Republican Party. One was an ideological coherence. So Trump was never ideologically coherent, but the idea was that you knew that he was anti-left. You didn't know how right he was, but you knew he was anti-left. You knew he was going to punch your opponents in the face. That was the appeal of his campaign. And two, he was going to win. So the Republican Party, again, had to provide you one of these two things and had provided you neither. It had not provided you victory and it had not provided you with ideological coherence. And so if you get neither, then Trump pledged sort of both. Right now, again, as a person, not ideologically, that doesn't matter. He was anti-left, and that's what people liked about him. Right? He was anti-Hillary, and people knew that he was anti-Hillary and that he was not going to cave to Hillary Clinton. Right? That was the pitch. And the pitch was he could win. He won in 2016, and it seemed as though the Republican dreams had been fulfilled. And then he proceeded to lose in 2018, 2020, 2021, and 2022. And so the promise that Trump had made in 2015, 2016, and then fulfilled a lot in 2017, 2018, has basically now dissipated. In other words, both of the main problems with the Republican Party that Trump was set to rectify are no longer present in Trump. This is the reason why he's fading in the polls. He doesn't appear ideologically coherent. It appears as though he is spending all of his days fulminating over election 2020 to the point where he's actually undermining Republican victory in particular areas and actually forwarding Democratic goals in particular areas by celebrating when Republicans lose in, for example, Georgia, right? Or suggesting that it's not a terrible thing that Don Baldock lost in New Hampshire after having elevated Don Baldock. That's sort of ripping on the Colorado Senate Republican who lost because that person didn't like Trump. So he's not facilitating victory, and he's also not facilitating ideological coherence. And everybody can see that. We'll get to more on this in just one second. First, it's no secret that the holiday season is the best time to buy a car. Dealers are motivated to hit end-of-month and end-of-year sales quotas, and with used car prices coming down, we can expect to see even more amazing deals this year. But before you set foot into a dealership, you have to check out CarZing. CarZing is completely changing the way you buy a car online. By partnering with credit agencies, lenders, and over 25,000 dealers nationwide, CarZing provides you with everything you need before setting foot into a dealership. You can instantly pre-qualify online without affecting your credit score and get instant financing details, including what your down payment would be, your monthly payment, term, and APR, putting you several steps ahead of other buyers. Once you find the right car at your ideal budget, all you have to do is bring your saved deal voucher with you to the dealership and finalize your next ride. It is very, very simple. Even if you're not in the market for a new car, you should check out CarZing anyway. It's like window shopping. Just poke around, see what's available in your area. Visit carzing.com/Ben today. Skip the guesswork to find out the best deals near you. That's carzing.com/Ben. It takes all the pain out of searching for a new or used car. Head on over to carzing.com/Ben today. If it's all about Trump's personal petty grievances, then Republicans are not going to resonate to that. And that's what's being reflected in the polls right now. According to the Wall Street Journal, Republican primary voters have high interest in Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who, by the way, does provide both. DeSantis is extremely ideologically coherent, and he's been incredibly successful in the state of Florida. He's offering you the two things the Republican Party has failed to offer you. This is a guy who's highly disciplined, not just in terms of his policies, which are very conservative, but he's highly disciplined in how he actually runs campaigns. This is a person who turned a 0.4% victory in 2018 into a 20-point victory in 2022, and turned the entire state blood red here in Florida. And he also happens to be pushing extremely conservative policies across the board that are successful. I'm explaining why DeSantis is picking up ground and Trump seems to be losing ground. And it's not because people hate Trump or anti-Trump. It's because Trump has lost the thread. Republican primary voters, again, are looking at Ron DeSantis as that potential 2024 nominee. In a hypothetical contest between the two, DeSantis beats Trump 52-38 among likely GOP primary voters contemplating a race in which the first nomination votes will be cast in just over a year. The poll, according to the Wall Street Journal, found that DeSantis is both well-known and well-liked among Republicans who say they are likely to vote in a party primary or nominating contest. 86% view the Florida governor favorably, compared with 74% who hold a favorable view of Trump. 1 in 10 likely GOP primary voters said they don't know enough about DeSantis to venture an opinion of him. Among all registered voters, DeSantis is viewed favorably by 43%, compared with 36% for Trump. Favorable views of Trump were the lowest recorded in journal polling dating to November 2021. They've been pulled down by the decline in positive feelings among Republicans. Since March, his favorability among GOP voters has fallen to 74% from 85%. The share who view him unfavorably has risen to 23% from 13%. And again, this makes sense because of the way that Trump has been acting. That's not unjustified. And it's not about antipathy for Trump. It's about Trump not being on top of the issues that people actually care about. This should be a reminder to the so-called moderate Republican chorus, the Asa Hutchinsons in Arkansas, who are saying, oh, maybe I'll run, or the Larry Hogans in Maryland, maybe I'll run. No, guys, you're the John Boehner wing. You're the people that we look at and we say, we don't know what your priorities are or why you wouldn't surrender to Democrats. You seem like you're from the sort of Mitt Romney school of Republican politics, in which buddy-buddy relationships across the aisle seem significantly more important than ideological coherence or victory. So the answer to you is no. In other words, the people who are now pro-DeSantis, who used to be pro-Trump, are not people who are anti-Trump. They are actively pro-DeSantis. And this is a problem for Trump in a primary. In 2016, there was no one who was actively, there were a few people like me. I was actively pro-Ted Cruz. I thought that Ted Cruz would make a better president than Trump. I supported him in the primaries. So there are some people who are actively pro a candidate. But many, many people out there were actively anti-Trump. And it turns out that wasn't enough to cross the finish line in the Republican Party, being anti-Trump. The votes for DeSantis, the people who are supporting DeSantis, are not doing it because they don't like Trump. They're doing it because they like DeSantis. So in other words, Hutchinson, Hogan, they're not going to be taking votes away from Ron DeSantis as part of the quote-unquote anti-Trump vote. What's going to happen is that they're just going to die on the vine. And that's the real threat to Trump, because Trump's needle in the Republican primaries in 2024, that eye of the needle is he has to have the Republican base split about 6 different ways, and then he walks through with 26% of the vote. Because that's about all he's going to get in these primaries. He's not going to be getting 60% of the vote in these Republican primaries. He doesn't walk away with this by any stretch of the imagination. There's a core base of the Republican Party who still are willing to overlook Trump's foibles because they still are believers in the 2016 Trump. But the 2016 Trump is not the 2022 Trump. And all you have to do to see that is look at Donald Trump's Truth Social account. If you look at Trump on Truth Social, he just does not comment on policy ever. Ever. I mean, his latest truths are things like, our country is a mess. This was election interference. The disinformation was coming from the FBI and Facebook. It was coming from Adam Schiff and Democratic operatives. This was a very damaging story to Biden before the election. They were going to kill it. Bottom line, the election was rigged and stolen. Or Donald Trump. How can the January 6th Unselect Committee make criminal referrals when they haven't spoken about or studied those that rigged the 2020 election? The troops not being brought in by Pelosi, or now the election fraud determinably revealed by Twitter. These are the real criminals. Okay, that is not the campaign that Republicans care about. I mean, it's not that Republicans necessarily even disagree with Trump. It's just this is not where their focus is. It all feels tired, and it all feels self-serving. And so when Trump puts out notices that he's going to be making major announcements, and it's a picture of him as a superhero, this is not the sort of stuff that I think is going to draw Republican primary voters. This is why he is sinking in the polls. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be talking with Senator Rand Paul about Anthony Fauci and Senate Republicans caving on the budget. Plus, we'll be talking with my business partner, Jeremy Boring. He's the founder of Jeremy's Razors. Give you an update on what's going on with Jeremy's Razors after we challenge the big guys. It's pretty amazing stuff. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.